So welcome back everyone. Yeah, so this is a remake of an old video. So of course, these are the 10 games that I frankly have lost interest in or have gave up on for various reasons. Starting off at my number 10 pick, we of course have Bound by Flame. This will not be the only Souls-like on the list. So Bound by Flame was a dark fantasy RPG and a bit of a Souls-like, maybe even a Souls-like. I really don't know how these terms work. All I just know is that this game shares a bit with what Dark Souls had did. So this game was interesting at first, but the reason why I gave up on this one was, of course, the brutal difficulty. There's a huge difficulty curve towards the end of the game, and it just frankly made playing this game unenjoyable. After so many failures, it's just really difficult to find enough motivation to really complete a game. I know that this is something that I know this is something that I've heard about Dark Souls, that you just keep trying. Frankly, I just don't see the appeal in that. I just kind of don't want to restart the same fight 10 plus times until I complete it, because that just is a little too stressful to deal with. Of course, at number 9, we of course have Battlefield 5. Of course, originally the entire series was on this list, but after going back and replaying these games, frankly, I gotta say, Battlefield 5 is arguably the worst entry. Well, my issues with this one are, of course, the fact that the campaign itself is boring. The Africa Corps one feels like one huge stealth mission. The Norway one, again, really feels like that and just kind of ends abruptly. And then it gets good during the French one. And then there's the DLC missions, which really sucks that the game launched with only 3 campaigns, only 9 missions, and 2 of the campaigns are just really dull and tedious to get through. Yeah, that kind of makes Battlefield 5 kind of a boring and really just bad game in my opinion. Which kind of sucks because Battlefield 1 Battlefield 1 did a lot good. While I am mixed on that one, it is still more enjoyable compared to 5. And of course, next up, we of course have Resident Evil 7. We of course have Resident Evil Code Veronica. So Code Veronica is probably my least favorite Resident Evil that I've played, at least of the main series. Obviously, I've not played any of the spin-offs aside from 3D Mercenaries and of course Revelations 1 and 2. But Code Veronica had a lot going for it. And, it kind of gets ruined by the tank controls. That's pretty much my biggest complaint with the game, is that the tank controls are just so bad. And this is one of the reasons why I really never bothered going to Resident Evil 2 or 3, and why I've only really reviewed the remakes. I hope in the future that they remake Code Veronica, but honestly, time will tell if Capcom really even cares about this game. Of course, next up, we of course have the Dark Souls series and other Souls-likes. So, I haven't tried all of these games. The only ones I have tried of the Soulsborne series are of course Bloodborne and Elden Ring, although I've tried out several Souls-likes, those of course being Code Vein, Anime Gate of Memories, and of course Stellar Blade. I've also played a few games that did get a bit of influence from Dark Souls, such as God of War, and obviously, of course, Stellar Blade and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Frankly, I kind of despise Souls-likes, and I despise the influence that they've had on gaming. Frankly, I don't dislike everything about these games, but I will definitely say I do dislike the fact that they did encourage some games to try what they did with difficulty, as it just kind of flat out just really made playing some games really tedious and very unenjoyable. But that's all I really have to say about this genre. Frankly, all I just do now is just avoid it because it's a little too stressful to really deal with these games. Next up, we of course have Knights of Azure. This one hurts to have on here because it was such a good game. It's just, like Bound by Flame, it just has such a huge difficulty curve towards the end. And even though I thought I was very prepared and still leveled up pretty high, I still had issues with this one. It just frankly got too unenjoyable, as this one boss kept constantly healing themselves. And while I could still deal damage to them, I wasn't dealing enough damage to negate the healing, which just got really annoying. And just frankly, honestly, I just stopped caring about this one. Which kind of sucks because it was made by the same people that made the Blue Reflection series, which is still one of my all-time favorite games. Of course, at number 5, we of course have Batman Arkham. This is of course talking about Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. Arkham Knight I have not played yet, but frankly considering that I could not get into the first two, yeah, there's no hope for Arkham Knight. So of course my issues with this one are just the fact that, well, for Arkham Asylum, it was just tedious to play. I lost interest in it pretty quickly, and it just was starting to become a chore to play. Arkham City is slightly better. I feel like the combat is much more enjoyable, but it's the same thing with Arkham Asylum. It's just the fact that these games are just kind of boring, which kind of sucks because Batman's a cool character. It's just unfortunate that the games that have him in it are just really uninteresting. It also doesn't help that this series was apparently influenced by Assassin's Creed, another series that I have kind of been vocal about my distaste about. Then, of course, number 4, we of course have Final Fantasy 13. So, of course, this is only talking about the original 13. 13-2 and Lightning Returns I've not played yet. I have heard that they did get better about the difficulty in the games, as well with gameplay, but frankly, I don't care enough about this trilogy to really warrant going back to it. I don't dislike Final Fantasy. I've enjoyed the 2 remakes of 7 as well as 16, but frankly, I'm kind of just perfectly fine with those being the only ones I play, which kind of sucks because 13 is actually a really interesting looking game. It just kind of sucks that the battle system is just as tedious as it was, as it relies more on strategy rather than anything else, and just, well, in my opinion, it's probably one of the worst games for a newcomer for the series. It's not really too beginner friendly, which I think is the biggest issue with it. I know the sequels did seem to get a lot better, especially from what I've heard, but again, I really just don't have the interest in going back to these games, which is unfortunate because, again, these games look really good. And of course, at number 3, we of course have, well, Bethesda. So of course, this is not talking about like the entire company. I will still obviously talk about Skyrim, but I think my biggest issues is, well, okay, there's quite a few issues I have with Bethesda. Frankly, honestly, I don't hate this developer, I just really have not had the interest in a lot of their games. I've tried Fallout 3, New Vegas 4, I've tried Dishonored, I wanted to try The Evil Within, and I've also tried Doom 2016. Frankly, I am just not the biggest fan of Bethesda's games. I'm just willing to admit that Skyrim is the only Bethesda game that I actually like, and I'm perfectly fine with that being the only one I play. Obviously, no hate towards the studio, I just frankly just don't like a lot of their other games. Then, of course, at number 2, we of course have Alice Madness Returns. This is one of the first games that actually influenced that list. So, Alice Madness Returns is a hack and slash and was released by EA. And, well, it was an interesting spin on Alice in Wonderland, but frankly, it gets dragged down by platforming and the hack and slash elements. Frankly, compared to other hack and slashes, it really fails in comparison, and it's got really unfun after a bit, which kind of sucks because it has an interesting story and an interesting premise. It just falls apart after a bit. Next up, we of course have a few honorable mentions. Those of course being for Darksiders, Ghost of Tsushima, and obviously Mafia. Next up, we of course have my number one pick, that of course being Assassin's Creed. Now, I went back and tried Odyssey and Origins. Honestly, I really am not the biggest fan of this series, and I don't like how I really just do not like anything about these games. I once liked the historical aspects about them, and I still do somewhat like them, but I think I dislike more about these games than I love. Frankly, I don't want to say much about this game because, well, most of my issues about these games is already what I've said in this video. But aside from difficulty, just too much tedious stealth parts, and then trying to be what other games for Assassin's Creed really just got dull for me extremely quickly, and is the poster child of the games I gave up on. That's all I really have to say for today. So, of course, until next time, thank you all for watching, and goodbye.